Okay, people. So today I'm joined by Richard Fenwick, who is the writer, director, producer. And you're kind of greedy with these roles, Richard.
I can't take much of the credit for production. That was just kind of towards the end, really. No,
But
I had a really good producer on the project called Job Inks, who was put it all together. So he takes a lot of the credit too.
right, yes. Well, I mean, watching your new film, Soulmate, I like everyone needs a round of applause because
Oh, thank you,
this film was fantastic.
thank you.
You had my nerves through the roof throughout. I'll tell you that. I was so anxious watching this film. It was insane.
Oh, that's really good to hear. Thank you. I love suspense. I mean, I think if I'm trying to do anything with my films, it's to generate that suspense. I'm a massive fan of De Palma and obviously Hitchcock before him, and I love Villeneuve and Fincher.
Mm,
All the people who can take a scene and just wring something out of it. Just like, oh my god, that's what I want a scene to kind of have that feeling for. So I'm really pleased that it struck you that way. Definitely.
oh man,
No.
yeah. That was pretty much the feeling all the way through. And I just thought Mandeep Dhillon was sensational as Hannah.
Yeah, I love her performance, and I think the fact that she's playing two quite contrasting roles within it.
Mm,
She's in a relaxed mode when she's in the simulation, and then she's got this very lonely kind of authoritarian existence outside of it. I think that's great range. I think
yeah.
that's the thing that I was always really excited about with Mandeep was that I knew she had that range. I mean, I think we know her more for comedy in this country, but I've seen other short films that she's done, and I think just as we were trying to cast the role, I became aware that she was on CSI in the States. So she was in the mood to kind of branch out from perhaps what she'd done before.
Yeah.
And that was exactly the reason that she wanted to do it, actually, is that she hadn't done anything quite like this project. So that was music to my ears. You know.
Mm. I mean, was when you were writing that character,
Yeah.
was there a concern of trying to find someone that that could convey so much contrasting emotions?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a hard one to. I mean, you've got to go with your instincts, definitely, with who you think can do that. Because when you get into the caliber of Mandeep and some other actresses that I was thinking about, you don't get that privilege of having an audition of any description. So you have to form the opinion beforehand that
Mm,
that person can do it. And like I said, I'd seen a few short films. I think one was called The Forgotten Sea, which is, um, I guess, a COVID film in the sense that it was about the isolation that people were feeling. And she played it so well, and it was such a contrast to her comedy work, and I could sense that range because of the work I'd seen before and that particular film, that I could see that sort of range in her. So yeah, I
yeah.
mean, it worked out basically, which is what you want to happen. But these things are always risks. I mean, making any film is a risk. So you just got to try your hardest to make those risks pay off.
Mm. Oh, for sure. It is funny though how there are these comedic actors who, when given a straight role, just completely
You nail
just
it. Yeah.
slam dunk it. I remember watching Punch Drunk Love, like Adam Sandler.
Yeah,
is
up until that
so
point,
good.
Adam Sandler, you would never have considered, would you? And then
No.
Paul Thomas Anderson comes along and says, "Look, this is what you can do with Adam Sandler," and
Mm.
everyone's like, "Wow!"
Exactly. And then he does Uncut Gems, where, like yours, the anxiety is through the roof. Like,
Yeah,
it's hard to, like, I thought Uncut Gems was a phenomenal film, but
yeah.
I don't know if I enjoyed it because I was just white knuckling it all the way through. You're just like, don't do that. Don't do that. What are you doing? Don't. Oh, and then the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
end.
yeah.
Oh my
Yeah, yeah,
God.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, I think that's interesting you say that. I mean, obviously, Soulmate's only 15 minutes, and some of the filmmakers I cited earlier, they obviously have amazing set pieces where you get that tension and that suspense, but they kind of bring it in and
Yeah.
then release you, and then bring another sequence in and release you. I mean, Uncut Gems is relentless,
Yes.
and the enjoyment kind of gets washed along because it's like, well, I just need a break at certain points. It's not criticism; it's more of an observation of, you do need to kind of manage someone over 90 minutes. I mean, I'm thinking of what was the film that I saw that I thought very similar? Son of Saul. Have you ever seen Son of Saul? It's a concentration camp movie, so it's really heavy, but
Mm,
it's all done with, you're always close in on the actor's face, and you move
right.
around with him throughout, and it's so relentlessly stressful.
No, I
um,
haven't seen that one then.
so yeah, so that's something that, yeah, that's definitely an anxiety one. if you wanted to if you wanted to find them as that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so funny. I mean, like Jim Carrey is
Mm,
fantastic in Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind. I
amazing.
mean,
Yeah,
is just so freaking good,
yeah,
right? And so yeah, you have these comedic actors, but
yeah.
just doing these incredible straight performances.
Yeah, and I think I mean I might be wrong about this, but I think that comedy is really quite hard,
Yeah.
So if you
Oh,
can if you can do comedy, you could probably do everything else at a saunter. So maybe it's just a breeze compared to comedy. I don't know.
yeah. Well, I think it's because with comedy, you know what I mean? It's about timing, right? It's about timing. Sometimes it's the body language to go with what you're saying or to
Yeah,
contrast what you're saying, right?
yeah,
It's all of those little things, and it's being able to play off people,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Which
And
is much more complicated, probably. Which
yes,
is, so yeah. Maybe it's a harder art form to get right. I mean, certainly in feature films, I struggle to put a top 10 comedies together where I can put a top 10 of thrillers or sci-fi or some other genres together quite easily. Comedy, I find,
mm,
very specific to individuals, isn't it?
it really, I think it really is. And of late, it's kind of been specific to time periods, it would seem. Because
Hmm.
there's a lot of comedies that nowadays, like, it's like they don't understand the thing that makes a certain style of film funny,
Hmm.
right? I remember there was oh my God, I cannot think of the name of the film. It came out last year. It had
Hmm.
Jennifer Lawrence in it.
Oh, I know which one you mean. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was an R17. It was quite heavy duty in terms of
Yeah,
like,
but she had to pretend to be the girlfriend of this young kid, and like the
yeah, yeah,
parents were kind of being like, take his virginity and this kind of thing. But and it's all this, and it's just like they want to make an edgy film, but then they don't want to go up to the line,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's
They're
got
too
yeah, yeah, it does, yeah.
scared to do certain things or say certain things. And it's like words, I feel a lot of the time it's about the intent with them, right? You can say something and you could say in a few ways, and it can mean something completely different.
Completely. Yeah.
And it's like they don't really get it, or they do something and it doesn't quite, like, I remember there's a new Netflix comedy called Incoming, and I watched that, and there's this scene where this girl, she's really drunk, and I think she's eating a kebab, a taco or something, right? And then she has ridiculous diarrhea. So they've got this, but then they've got it that it's gone all over the car, which makes no sense. Then they go, oh, we're going to hose her off, and now she's clean. And you're like, yo, you can hose it off her legs, but it's
Not
still
a
going to be in
glove.
one place. It's still going to be in one place. And if you're telling me you hose there, then there's a problem, right? And so the next day, they're all like, oh, everything's fine. And you're like, she will still stink. What are you talking about? Like, what are you still talking about? She's going to be stinky. Like, and it's just like, they're trying to do something funny, but it doesn't work because you're like, you're missing the point of it all, you know. That seems to be the big thing with a lot of comedies. But then you watch some that, oh my god, do such. I talk about this so often. People are probably sick of it, and it's an Adam Sandler film. Funny enough. Right, he produced it. His daughters are in it. It's called "You're So Not Invited to My Bar Mitzvah," and it was so funny. It was so funny. Oh my god, it was great. I really enjoyed that film. And there was a film through Lionsgate called Joyride.
Yeah. I've heard of that one.
Oh my god, that was great. And so we do get some comedies that understand and really nail it, but a lot just it's weird.
It is weird. It is weird. I reckon it's a very hard medium to work in, though. I really do. I think you can have everything in place and it still doesn't click for some reason.
Yes.
And that must be that's a hard one to reconcile then, isn't it? When you put all put everything together and it's still not gelling.
Well, because as we were talking earlier, it's just like it's getting the actors. Now they might be a great actor, but they just can't pull off comedy. Right. And sometimes you'll watch this great actor and you're thinking, oh, they're in this, and you're like, they're not, they can't do the funny. Like, oh, this isn't working.
This is a bad. I wonder, there's always that story of Eric Stoltz in Back to the Future, isn't there? And I haven't seen any of those rushes. But you can imagine Michael J. Fox just relaxing into that character really easily, and of course that was the resultant film. But then you see something like Pulp Fiction, and Eric Stoltz is amazingly funny in those scenes as the dealer.
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know. It's a hard. It's many different aspects, isn't it? Robert Zemeckis is a very different director to Quentin Tarantino. So you've just got to get everything to gel. At every juncture in your film to make it work. So there's a lot of psychology involved too. Just things sitting just sitting at the edge of the set and thinking about how to make something work if it isn't.
Yeah.
Definitely. So it's not an easy discipline filmmaking, that's for sure.
I mean, what is your like rationale with connecting with the actors, with being able to get these kind of performances out of Joe and Mandeep?
Well, this is this is a very interesting project for that, because in the past I've done rehearsal time. I mean, I've worked with actors who are at the very start of their career because of their age, so like 14, 15, 16. And that was rehearsals and talking through scenes and doing quite a lot of work with them. With this, I had probably about an hour with each of them,
Right.
separately, just to talk about the characters. And I think it was both, it was both Zoom, if I remember right. So there was no need to go into the scenes at that point so much, just an overview of who they were, what I was thinking about, etc. But what it did mean is that when it came to the scenes themselves, they came with their ideas and they did their ideas. And that's what I like, actually, if I've got the choice, because you're never going to see those choices that they make again unless you let them do it at the beginning.
Yes. Yeah.
So there's and then you can start saying, well, have you thought of this? And can we try maybe this idea as well? Or they've come up with ideas because they've performed it a few times. So that's kind of how it worked. And there was very little direction from me. I remember 2 or 3 scenes where I sort of jumped in and went, oh, just remember to think about this too. Or just imagine this is happening, in your head while that scene's happening. And it was just light touch, because 2 things. One is they're amazing actors in the first place. And 2 is they really want to bring, what they think about the script to the table. So to shut that down or to work from your perspective at the beginning is kind of missing an opportunity to see what they're going to bring to this. They're responding to your script. Your script really well. You can be kind of like relaxed about that because you know what your intention is. I want to see if the intention has come through from the script writing process to them, transmitted to them, and then they have time to process it and work through the scene the way that they felt it. So that was pretty much, and that helped because of the fact that the shoot was incredibly tight. I mean, I don't think I've ever had that amount of setups and stuff to do in a project over the duration that we had. We had 4 days, and we were jumping from different locations in central London, and sets and all sorts. So it felt like if it needed to be a lot of my direction in there, that would have really overloaded me anyway. So it was actually really beneficial, because I was doing more jobs than just directing. I was doing a lot of the sort of technical work in terms of, we had a lot of screens, iPads and the screens in a room, etc. And certain things had to be on them at certain times, and that was my chore or task. That's definitely a chore, not a task. And and then batteries were going down on certain things, or it was just there was technical stuff that I had to do throughout the shoot that really kept me occupied in a way that it's like, okay, you get on with what you're good at, and if I spot anything and it's not working, the other thing I would say though is that I was only able to work that way because I've got some experience. If I hadn't done this before, I would have been petrified of letting them completely loose and free on the script.
Yeah.
If I was inexperienced, I'd have been like, okay, I need to tell them what I'm thinking, in advance so they get it. It's like, no, you don't. Actually, after a few projects, you realize that people come to the table with their expertise and you let them do their expertise, and then you nudge them and you move them if it's not quite what you need for the story to work or something. So a lighter touch when you've got some experience, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. Like with the script, Did you send them anything else? Was there like a story Bible, with like character histories and a little bit of background or anything? Or was it literally kind of just a few notes with the script?
There was a sort of a luck book treatment that went out with the script, and that sort of that had pulled in imagery and visual sort of material that they could look at and see the world when they saw the script. Um, and there's a very clear, even at that early stage when we were talking to cast, there was a very clear distinction between the visuals for the dystopian near future and the sort of utopian simulation stuff.
Mm.
So that was sort of very visually nailed down in some ways. But in terms of character, it was pretty much in the script. I mean, the thing to say about the script is that it was probably as sharp as I've ever got a script, and
Okay.
that was not necessarily, again, the way I would, because it was quite sharp. And I know it was sharp because you know what other scripts you've done look like and feel like.
Yeah.
This felt like it had really been honed. That gave me the confidence that a lot of the answers were in the script. A lot of times you can read a script and go, "Oh, I'm really curious. I wonder if he means this or that." Or,
Mm.
but this, I think, was actually quite precise. So I think that hour I had with both Joe and Mandeep, when we sat down and talked about the character, again, it was mostly them asking me questions rather than me saying, "Okay, this is what I think." It's like I was more like just trying to respond to what they had in mind, and Joe was really interesting because he wanted to know how human he was. Am I
Mm.
100%? Am I indistinguishable from humans? Is there something that gives me away that I'm AI? Is there something that's just making me 95% or 90%? So we had a really sort of in-depth conversation about that sort of angle for him. And I think you played it really well, actually. It does feel that there's something just off, but it's intangible. It's
Yeah.
almost it's uncanny valley territory, but not in a visual way, more of a um, the way we discussed it actually was I was trying to say, well, it's a bit like in Blade Runner where they've got a 4-year lifespan. They don't have very much emotional experience and not very much time to gather it all up. So
Mm.
they encountering these things for the first time. So the first flush of love or desire, it's really powerful. Bit like if you're still an adolescent 15-year-old or 16-year-old. So even though the AI is 30s, he might be feeling like he's experiencing love for the very first time. So that was an important character note for him, and that was easy to do in an hour. So it wasn't necessarily anything great. Yeah, it felt like we covered what we needed to cover in the time that we had. Um, and it kind of worked out pretty good, I think.
Mm. Yeah. There's it's funny, like bring up the 4 year in Blade Runner because
Mm,
know, it did feel like with Neil that it was too good to be true.
mm.
You know what I mean? It was like that love overdose. It was just like everything was just like, he's saying all the right things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly what
That was
Anna wants to know
to
and
hear. Yeah,
hear.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah.
like, oh shit. Like you can see why someone, if they've been kind of lonely and just not
Hmm.
very lucky in love,
Yeah,
if they got that, they'd be like, "Oh my god, this is everything I've ever wanted. Oh my god." Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
You
Totally,
definitely
totally.
felt like that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I mean that was intentional to a great degree because it's meant to be. Is this a film about love or is this a film about tech addiction? Well, it's both,
Yes.
mostly because the tech addiction has got to the extent that what you're dealing with is a conscious-ish AI. So it's now indistinguishable from real life, and therefore you are absolutely going to, question your state of mind if you don't pursue this at certain stages, or it's absolutely made you believe,
Mm.
and that's what I wanted. That I wanted um, Mandeep's character Anna to be on that cusp of I've got to let go of this, but I can't because it's perfect, as you said, and it makes it incredibly hard for her at every sort of turn. And she knows she's doing the wrong thing at certain
Yeah.
stages, and she's crossing the Rubicon several times in this story. And once, I mean, not giving away the ending, but there's once towards the end where she absolutely crosses the Rubicon and there's no way back at that point,
No.
because there's an awful lot of things happen to her that she responds to, but this time towards the end she does it of her own volition.
Yeah.
And I think that's when it becomes like, she's hook, line, and sinker in this scenario now.
Mm.
And I'm kind of watching this almost dispassionately as a filmmaker, saying I want the audience to go there. It's like, oh, it's so good, and then it's like, is it? Is
Well,
it?
but I think the big thing is, right, because you know what I mean, that's the thing, right? That it has to be so real to make her do a thing
What
that
she
is
does.
insanity when you know what's going on, right? You
Yeah,
just be like, the risk. What are you doing? This
yeah,
is insanity to do this, to pursue
yeah,
this.
yeah.
And the ending, like there's so many bit, like there's the bit towards the end with Andrew Cullum's character,
Mm,
right? And then the very ending, which did kind of remind me of Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind. You
yeah,
know
yeah.
how it ends with them like going, "Oh, we understand what's been going on, but we're gonna give love another try.
Hmm.
We're going to bet on love one more time," kind of thing.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
it like it's the ending obviously isn't that, but it reminded me of that ending. And you're
yeah,
just like, "Oh my gosh."
yeah, 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 yeah. And but there's an awful lot of tech that exists already where we know that it's not the right thing to do, but we pursue it, and
Mm,
um, and it facilitates that. It
yeah.
gives us the avenue to do that, and we know we shouldn't, but hey, what's it been put in my path for if it's not to use? It's similar to what we were talking about before we came on air, and you were talking about Avatar girlfriends and the idea that you can have a relationship of some description. It's not the best way to have a relationship, but hey, it's there.
Yeah.
It's an alternative, right? It's
Yeah.
something that you can have a try at, and who knows? It might be satisfactory in that on that level. It might
Mm.
work. It might actually be better in some ways than a real person. I don't know. I've never tried that particular thing, but it's just like tech is allowing us to do this, so it can't be that wrong. Someone thinks it's a good idea because they've put all their money and resources into it,
Mm.
inventing it. So there
Well,
must be a reason.
yeah, I mean, the crazy thing about that is there's no
Mm.
physical connection, right?
This is this.
And
That's the
and
next stage.
you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because you can't get a hug. It's not like you can get a hug, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you can be intimate. There's nothing like that. Now, I've heard of like supposedly these haptic suits where
Uh-huh.
it then takes it to the next thing, which is super kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
you think what Anna and Neil are going through is that definitely that next
Yeah.
jump. And when you think about technology,
Yeah.
you know, I talked about this in the review. It's just like when you look at where the iPhone started and where it is now, and it's not a lot. Like the iPhone, I believe it's just over 20 years old.
Hmm.
But even after 10 years, the difference between the first one and that one was ridiculous.
Hmm.
So this is, you know, it's 2035, so it's
Yeah.
11 years, 11
Hmm.
years away. So you just think that's in technology terms and the way everything has evolved, that's not that far.
No,
That's
it's not.
not a
No.
big leap. And so where we could be in that time is very believable that it's this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to predict, isn't it? But one thing that's really quite scary, I suppose, is what they're talking about when you listen to anyone who's talking about AI, what they think is going to happen in 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
So y- it's going to be lightning quick because of the speed of the processes that AI uses and will continue to use. I mean, they're mostly when they're talking about AI, they're not talking about what's feasible anymore. They're talking about the power needed to achieve it. They're saying
Mm.
actually this will trip itself up because we don't actually have enough power on the planet to do it. It's
Yeah.
like what? That's just I don't even understand what you're talking about now. Is that well we would need all of these what's that company that's the biggest one now for chips? Is it N something?
Oh, NVIDIA.
Nvidia,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, they can't build enough chips to cope,
Yeah.
and they don't have enough power to be able to. It's like wow. Okay, so what's actually going to trip up AI is not necessarily its capacity to do what it wants to do, but that it's going to not have enough power on the planet to achieve it. It's going to have to work out how to do fission. Is it fission or
Hmm.
work out how to do that, which it might
Yeah.
before it has enough power to be able to, take on those next steps that
Yeah.
they're expecting it to do.
Well,
Crazy.
supposedly China have developed a
Mm,
really small nuclear power station.
okay.
So, you know what I mean? Because that's the whole thing. It's like with a lot of this stuff,
Mm,
like EV batteries and all things like that, and it's just like it's all problematic with what it's able to do.
mm,
So fusion energy is actually the best way and probably the cleaner way. When you think about, right, to do these batteries, you need cobalt, and cobalt mining is horrendous,
right.
which people
Mm.
don't wanna talk about. You know what I mean? They're like,
And
"Hey, we're going green. We've changed the packaging." I'm like, "Yeah, but you still use cobalt. Let's talk about that, right?" And they're like, "Oh, it's a nice day, isn't it?" You know what I mean? No one wants to talk about the real shit, right? And
mm,
so it's just like, supposedly
mm.
fusion could be the best approach, but because of Hiroshima and all of that, no one really wants to go that route.
Yeah, yeah, but AI might want to, and
Yes.
there's going to be a point where we're not going to be able to stop it. And that's what I find hysterical is that this knowledge that there's huge safety issues, but we're not going to stop because if we do, we'll fall behind China. This I'm
Yeah.
talking from a Western perspective. So we have to keep up, or we're going to be we're going to lose our own economies to this.
Yeah.
So that's the definition of a real proper arms race. It doesn't make any sense to do it, but we have to. It's like
Yeah.
wow,
I know.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, even on a a less crazy scale, but still kind of
mm,
crazy, when you look at something like TikTok,
mm,
right? TikTok wants all your information. You know what I mean? The terms and agreements, you're giving them the rights to everything on your phone. You're giving them the rights to your contacts, all of this stuff, which is insanity. And people know this now. This is the thing.
Oh
When
yeah,
it first came out, no one knew this, but now
yeah,
everyone knows this, but people still use it.
yeah.
People still want to use it. They're happy to sign everything away.
This is the addiction thing I'm talking about. This
Yeah.
is the thing where you know what the tech gives you is more important to what the downsides are to it.
Mm.
And you know what I find fascinating is that we're addicted to random videos or random conversations. We haven't even got into the realm of being able to physically be involved with another entity in a computer simulation that I'm outlining here.
Mm.
That's if this stuff's addictive, that's going to be mind-blowingly addictive. Because
Well,
there's no way that you're going to be able to walk away from that type of thing if you can't walk away from a Twitter and an X conversation that's it's pretty toxic, but I've got to go back and do the next line of
yeah.
next answer to that
Well,
person that's saying the wrong things.
exactly. And when you then think about, right, if you can create these AI, girlfriend, boyfriends, and all of this kind of jazz, and you could probably, you can make it look like with whatever you want it to look like. So that person that turned you down, right? That
Mhm.
ex that dumped you, that celebrity that you've got a crush on,
Yeah.
it's gonna get real
Uh,
murky. It's gonna
it's
get
going to get
real murky.
incredibly murky. I mean, I don't. It. That I think that's what this is a gateway to.
Yeah.
It's like here's some, I've been on the festival circuit for nearly a year, and I think I've probably seen in the realm of another sort of 8 to 10 films that are AI related, and they're all doing the same sort of things
Mm.
in that they're a cautionary tale, and they're saying let's just you know it's I think it's different when you watch a film because obviously we hear this discourse about Elon Musk, what he says, and then what Sam Altman is it
Yeah.
says, and all these different characters, and you hear it, and there's a vibe, and you get it. But when you see a film, it's like I'm just presenting this to you in a personal 15-20 minutes, or maybe there's features now, and we need to think about this hard because this stuff's coming down the pipe, and we need to know
Mm.
what we're gonna do about it. Um, and what we know from social media now is that people take things to heart. People take things to heart from strangers.
Yeah.
People are unhappy if they don't get enough likes. People are unhappy if someone says disparaging thing about them, the picture that they chose to put up.
Mm.
So, what's that going to be like when you um, have something that's actually worth having? You know,
Yeah.
not something quite throwaway and random, but literally could be central to your life. I think that's what Soulmate's trying to do in an entertaining way that gets your pulse racing at certain points and tries to tell a story at the same time. So yeah, it's exciting. I mean, it's exciting for a filmmaker. I think the rest of the world's a bit shafted, but I'm excited to explore it. But then,
Well, I mean,
you know,
Soulmates does a really great job of showcasing this situation, this element of what this could be. And as I said, you buy everything,
it's good
right?
to hear. That's very
The
kind. Thank
AI
you.
aspect of it, the real world aspect of it, just all of these different components you buy, and that's what makes it so great and compelling.
Yeah, I mean, we were very conscious of the fact that if those two worlds didn't work, then you just wouldn't be in them enough, and you couldn't sell it. So you know, it's one of those stories that you have to get the production design right, and you have to get the cinematography right, and you have to, they're craft things. It's like, oh, you can pick up a camera and you can make a story, and that's not the important stuff. The important stuff is the characters and the emotion. But in sci-fi, you do have to get that other stuff right, because if you take people out of that world, I mean, anything that's not sci-fi, if you're in a kind of contemporary world, that's all just given to you. Those locations are just there, they exist, and then yes, you can concentrate on two characters in having a scene together. But with sci-fi, you get something off too much, and you just lose your audience, because they go, oh, that looks fake. Oh, that's not work. That doesn't feel real, and maybe it took the science fiction genre till the 70s and 80s to start to get really good. I mean, obviously 2001 was late 60s, but Kubrick was a genius, and he was able to make things look real even then. But there was a period of sci-fi where everything looked fake.
Oh,
and it's great, but it felt trashy because of that. That's why they felt like B movies to me.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, right, as a kid, you'd come home from school and there'd be Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers in the 25th century. And Battlestar Galactica always felt like the stronger of the two, because Buck Rogers always looked a little bit fake.
Yeah, it was very TV, that one, wasn't it? Battlestar Galactica managed to get the production, but there was a film first, though, wasn't there? Or was there?
Yeah, it was.
So Star Wars came out in '77, and then Battlestar Galactica was right on the sort of tail of it.
Yeah, I think it started off with a TV movie. I think that, and then it went into the TV series.
Yeah. But that had decent production values, considering. Not comparable to Star Wars, but what was back then. I think Alien came out in '79, and that I was coming into being a teenager, late '80s, and I got all the VHS blockbuster videos were coming on stream for things like Terminator, Blade Runner, Aliens, and even more esoteric stuff like Brazil, Tron. So that was when, and I think that's when sci-fi really matured, and you could have proper stories that actually felt like they had depth and meaning, because the world could now be created. I mean, Ridley Scott's got a lot to do with that, really. I mean, he really raised the stakes for production design with Alien and Blade Runner, and everyone had to follow suit, except Paul Verhoeven, who was like, nah, let's do trash.
Well, the funny thing is, right? I watched a film just the other day. The production was crazy, right? Because it looked so fake. It really looked so fake. It was bonkers. And at the beginning, you're like, what the fuck is this? But I feel it's all very much intentional. And then the story itself had a lot of heart, and the connection between the characters was so good, so strong, that you actually, you can kind of separate it from the sets. And the sets then just make you smile, because you'd be like, that's so fucking goofy, right? It was just this film called If You Were the Last, right? It's from Christine Macedo, written by Angela Bassara, and it starred like Zoe Chow and Anthony Mackie. And I watched it on where did I watch it? I think Now TV.
Right.
think Now TV, but it was really good. But yeah, the set, it looked like the panel for the spaceship was made out of cardboard, right? It was so crazy, but
Mm.
it's the story was very good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guarantee there's exceptions that disprove my rule, but in general, if
Yes.
it, if you're taking out the world, it can have a negative impact. Was it comedic as well, or was it straight?
Yeah. It was
I think, yeah.
it's funny. It was kind of heartfelt, and it had these things, and it was one of those ones of basically the theme was they're kind of stranded. It's just them on this spaceship, and they're just
Mm,
like, should we get together?
mm,
Right?
mm,
It was that kind of thing, but the approach wasn't oh, you just touched my hand. It was just like this actually frank conversation. Be like, look, we're probably gonna die. So
mm. Let's get together.
yeah, what are the pros and cons? So us just doing it, right? And so it was kind of a frank conversation, which you do feel, yeah, these are intelligent people, these are
Mm,
astronauts. They would
mm,
probably have an intelligent conversation about it, but it
mm.
all kind of made sense. But it
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
still funny and goofy and
yeah, yeah.
it just worked, which yeah, a lot
It's
of
yeah.
time. I mean, look at some of the sequels to Starship Troopers. They do not work.
I haven't seen them. I've seen the first one. But I didn't know there were sequels.
You're a
Um,
lucky person then.
it sounds like it. But I remember coming across John Carpenter's Dark Star years after I'd watched all of these other classic sci-fi, and it was done for £10 or something. and it was his student film, I believe. And I think it's got Dan O'Bannon in it, who wrote Alien. He's literally starring in it. Um, but the alien is a beach ball basically with
Mm.
these feet, etc. And it works because it's comedic. It works because it's riffing off some of the other,
Yeah.
sci-fi that was around at the time. So I don't know if it came out just before Alien or after, but it was like, listen, we can't compete with this, but what we can do is make fun of the genre.
Mm.
And I wonder if you can get away with that now much more because we have a body of work that's, seminal. Whereas back in the 50s and 60s, it all looked like that. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been any kind of like, you weren't dialing something up or down. It was just like, well, this is what it all looks like. So I'm not making a statement here, am I? That's, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. It's probably just down to the script and the direction.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you've got a good idea at its heart, you can negate a lot of things.
Yeah.
You know, Uh, um, but I suppose my take on this is that I want to be doing the work that I was inspired by when I was growing up, and that would be the Ridley Scott stuff. And now today, if I think about it, you've got your Alex Garlands and people like that who are
Mm.
and Denny Villeneuve, who I think is
Oh my
probably
God.
probably the best out there. And I've
I
thought
mean,
that for years. I thought that well before most people. I think you could just tell that his attention to detail was immaculate, and he did every. He gets that it's every aspect of filmmaking. It's not
yeah.
just a few bits; it's everything all the time.
Yes.
Um,
I mean, he's
so
always been a great director, but I think I remember when I heard that he was doing June, and it
I
was
was
just
scared.
like
I was a bit scared for him.
I was until I
Mm.
watched Arrival. And as soon as
Oh
I
yeah,
watched Arrival, I was just like, oh yeah, fuck, give it to let him do it.
yeah,
Let him
yeah,
do it. I mean,
yeah.
not that I had a say in it, but I was definitely like, let him do it. Yeah, you can have it, Denny's. You can have it.
But I love the progression because it was Arrival, then it was Blade Runner, and I didn't even know he was interested in sci-fi. That was like his seventh or eighth film, getting
Yeah.
to Arrival, and then it was Blade Runner, and then the Dune films. I mean, I hope he comes out and does something completely different because he's got such a breadth of work previous. that, you know, we don't want to lose him to sci-fi forever.
No, I think the studio really wants him to do Dune Messiah next, but I do
Absolutely.
think it sounds like he does want to do something else in between, at least. So
Yeah.
I think it just all depends on what's going down. But
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
I think the difference is that he doesn't have the script for Messiah, does he? So that's going to take a few years. So he will get
Oh,
a
I
chance to
think
do
he might
something.
though.
Oh, really? Already? That was the
Yeah.
thing. I heard that he, you know, well, it was probably a few months ago now. So things move pretty fast when there's those amounts of money involved.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
at least maybe the treatment for the script. I don't like. I definitely. It's not. You know, the fifth, sixth draft. Like,
Uh-huh.
if anything, it would be the first draft. But it might just be the treatment of. But
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
he's thinking of it. But I do believe he does want to do something else in between. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna be there for whatever the hell it is. I'm down.
Exactly. I mean, there's only a few filmmakers that I'm like that with. It was David Lynch for many years. You know, I've watched whatever ever he
Mm.
put out. And you know, you go to something like Inland Empire and be just like, okay, I'm going to stick with it and get to the next one, because that was a long one. And but yeah, I mean, there's certain filmmakers that you just, once you're latched on, you have to see what they do next.
Oh, good. I will watch anything James Samuels does
Mhm,
because he is so
mhm.
visionary with his direction. He's so good.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
good.
yeah. I'm trying to think of other people for me. Um, Jonathan Glazer, I think probably.
Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but there's not many, and that's the thing. You know, it's like for me, it's you latch on to the very best, and you'll watch everything they do because you know that's there's only so many hours in the day, and you've got to you know pick the right content.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
You know, you
yeah.
can pick the wrong content and be
Oh
down the wrong avenues for quite a while.
boy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have definitely I watched Madam Web the other day, and that's time I'm never getting back.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's definitely some films that I've watched on my own accord, and other films that have been sent to me that I've had to watch, and I've been like, God damn it, why did you send this to me? Why do you hate me so much?
Yeah, it's working out why people sent you that. It's like,
Yeah.
did they mean to send me that? Yeah, no, I think you've got to have a really sort of discerning sensibility out there because there is so much to watch now. There's so much out there,
Mm.
and especially when you get into TV series that are, you
Oh
know,
man, I'm
10, 12,
struggling to find
18.
the time for TV right
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
the
I agree. I
problem.
agree.
There's so and it's being sent so many films. It's covering film festivals, and I think the other thing for me is I want to give like this open kind of view on everything.
Mm,
I'm just watching a lot of different things,
hmm
right? Where you could go, I'm only watching this genre, right?
mm,
Or I'm only but I just feel yeah, that I think that
mm.
would be detrimental. So I try and
Yeah,
keep it
yeah.
real open, and because also you get surprised, right?
Uh-huh.
There's oftentimes I'll be surprised by something. I'll be like, "Oh my god, that was so good. I was
Uh-huh.
not expecting it," right? And I'll be
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." And so, yeah, I like doing that, but it just means that it's trying to find the time for other things. It's crazy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, I think I'm still sort of in love with the 2 hour, 2.5 hour slot of what a film makes. you know, how film works in those 2 hours. A
Mm.
TV series, you invest a lot of time into that, so it better be damn good.
Yeah.
So you know, so you can get away with 2 hours, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I think film's my natural format. It just feels right. When I'm writing as well, it just feels right. It's I've never really been inclined to adapt any of my stuff towards TV.
Right.
It's probably an easier way, an easier route for me to do
Mm.
these shorts and then move into TV and then perhaps see if I can get to features that way. But I don't know. There's something. I mean, I would jump at the chance to do an anthology sort of,
Ooh.
where you're in that
The
kind of like
robot
sick.
type of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could be any length then. You could be
Mm.
talking about half an hour, you could be talking about 60 minutes. And that would appeal to me because it feels like it's a film in the sense that it's got a start, middle, and end in one sitting.
Yeah.
You can do the whole thing. And I think that's one of the other things about TV. It's like film is definitely a director's medium, whereas TV is still the showrunner. It's becoming more common that you might get a director that does the whole series, but it's a lot of work. So
Yes.
yes, you get your first two and your last two, and then there's other
Yeah.
people involved, and that feels a bit like disjointed and a bit. I remember even thinking that way back when David Lynch did Twin Peaks. If you watch the pilot of Twin Peaks, I think, and he might have done the second episode as well, but he certainly did the first one. It's amazing, and then the drop in quality
Mm.
is instant when it's not him, and
That
you're just like
is the problem. I think it's definitely about um, the producer finding the people
the right
that
people. Yeah,
fit,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
The
yeah,
vision has to be on that same kind of par. Even if
yeah.
you're shooting, the style can be different, but the vision
Uh-huh.
needs to be similar for it
Yeah.
to work, I think.
The tone of voice and the sort of how you deal with that script. I mean, this often it's the same. It's like often different writers too, isn't it? I was going to say it's often
Mm.
the same writer, but I think that's what maybe puts me off though is that kind of slight disconnect between the fact that there's different creatives doing the project, and it doesn't feel like. I think a film just feels like its own thing,
Mm.
and I've always wanted to write and direct, so it doesn't massively make sense to do TV, I guess. But then again,
Mm.
just something
Yeah.
might come along that changes my mind. So who knows? Who knows?
I think when you were doing Soulmates,
Mm.
um, was there any sort of hesitation or doubt? Because there was a big gap between the last, the last one, right?
Uh-huh.
Um,
Uh-huh.
that you did in 2012, Exhaustion,
Yeah.
um, and you did the music video.
Yeah.
So was there anything, because as you said, with this one, it was very tight on the time,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
because
It was very ambitious. Yeah.
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 So
Uh,
was there anything where you're like, "Can I still do this?"
no.
Okay.
No. I think mostly if you write it, you can already see it.
Right, right.
And if you then storyboard it, you know exactly where you want to put the camera often. Um, so, and the experience of doing lots of projects. Basically, I had sort of like a period where I did loads of work.
Yeah.
And then I got embroiled in writing my features and having kids and all sorts of things have happened in the background where I got pulled away from directing per se. Not in the commercial industries though. I did some work in the commercial industries over those
Yeah.
years where I wasn't doing my own indie stuff. But in general, I knew the set well enough to know that that would all just come back because I'd had gaps before as well. So I think um trying to think of the longest gap. There was probably 2 or 3 years, maybe in certain areas where I hadn't been on a film set, and you just fall back into it. It really is that cliche of like it's riding a bike. You just know from past experience what you do. So no, there wasn't any trepidation about going into the shoot, because all of those processes that lead you to getting onto the film set um, are progressive, and it just builds the excitement. So you kind of, it's like the next step. It's like if you were going up a set of steps, and the next step is the shoot. It's you've got yourself there. So no, not really. I mean, I would have liked there to be a smaller gap, but that was just not the way things have turned out. But it also means that I can turn on 4 days and do that shoot. So it should give people confidence that you can go in and do your feature or whatever your next project is just the same way. So no, it's just the film industry. It's just a funny industry to if you try to do your own stuff, your own writing, your own directing, your own ideas, then be prepared to wait. It's a part of it. Have patience. Have more patience than you think you can cope with.
Well, I think what's really important is these kind of conversations where people actually honestly talk about the experience, the process, right? So anyone trying to, do their own thing understands what could be ahead. And it's just like, don't get disheartened, don't get frustrated. It takes a little time, right? Where you might hear, oh, they're making a new Mission Impossible, and it's gonna, they're looking for it to hit cinemas next year, and you're just like, wait, how can they do that? My project is taking like this amount. I'm like, when you think about what's behind those big productions, the amount of people, the crew, the money, right? It's so huge. You can turn things around that quickly. But when it's just a few people, it can take time,
I mean, Soulmate was is testimony to that, because ultimately I think I got to a decent draft just before the pandemic, and then we submitted it to BFI, and then the pandemic hit, and there was literally a year. I think it was between 9 months and a year where BFI were offline. They just were working out how they were even going to be able to do shoots, how they were going to. So that process just got stalled for 9 months. And then they came back online, and it was like, yes, we would like to do your film. It's like, great. I think we were obviously in, the middle of the pandemic by then. Then there was, a few months went by where we polished the script, and we were trying to put, the pieces together. Like the producer, I had some really great execs who were kind of involved all the way through, and then we found Joe to produce it, but there's months, there's months that I lost just because of the pandemic. And then I make the joke that we started in the pandemic and we ended it in a cost of living crisis. It's like, it's not the time to be making a short film, it's just not. But and then there was an awful lot of post-production, as you can imagine, and I think we shot 2022, April 2022, and we had picture lock by I think September, October, and then it took a whole year, well, nearly a whole year. I think it took again till April, May, June of 2023 to actually have the finished film, and all of that time was literally, all our post houses had been, in similar ways to everyone else, having projects pulled, projects coming back, projects out of order, Okay, so this short film, where's that going to fit in? Well, it's not for a while. Okay, so
Mm.
we'll wait. We'll have to wait. And you can just imagine doing a low budget short with that amount of post production when the whole world was still kind of recovering.
Yeah.
And post houses aren't, rightly not wanting to work on something where there's no finance involved, and they've got their projects that they've got to do, contractually or whatever. So yeah, it took an awful long time to put Soulmate together. But you get to milestones, and those milestones are positive, as in the cut works, hooray! Well, the shoot works, hooray! The cut works, hooray! Let's start talking about the music. The music's sounding great, hooray! And you just get through those milestones, really. And there's where you're not getting anywhere. And you think about bigger productions that, like you were saying, that are much bigger and they've got big money attached to them, and you can imagine they have completely different sets of problems. They might be coasting through all the processes, but some of the creativity is getting trampled because it's a machine, and the director's like, that's not what we wanted.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it swings and roundabouts, I suppose, with every type of production. I mean, there's no getting away from the fact, though, that a small production, the creative control stays with the key creatives. We had some really good input from the BFI, our execs, about the cuts and what they thought. But it was all kind of like, I think this, and it's up to you if you think that's going to work, etc. It's all very nice at that level. I can imagine feature films being an absolute nightmare when you get to big budgets. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that hasn't tested well. Well, I'm afraid that is the film. So what if it hasn't tested well? We're in trouble. It's like, well, we've got to do some major surgery here. It's like, oh, okay.
Well, yeah, like you always hear about like the reshoots, right? Like on I think it was the first Suicide Squad film, the Justice League film. And, like there's all these ones that are like going back for reshoots because the test screenings were not good and we need to change the ending, or sometimes it's like, oh, we need to write a new character in, and there's like all these crazy things that happen.
It is crazy. It is crazy when you get to that level, because if you're writing a new ending, well, it might not make any sense, that new
Mm,
ending, because it's not a screenplay is an incredibly hard thing to shape in the first place. So if you're going to arbitrarily change the ending, it's got to work.
yeah.
So you get your writers in a room and see if that's solvable. But if it's not, then you can't just change it and hope, because that's why films don't necessarily always feel like they're working.
No, no. That is the problem. A lot of times when you hear there's all this trouble and then you watch the finished thing, you'll be like, okay, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see that multiple people have had their fingers in this because, boy.
Yeah. I mean, Blade Runner. We talked about Blade Runner quite a lot today, but Blade Runner is another great example, though, isn't it? The studio got negative responses from the audiences. They decided to pull it to pieces a bit. Ridley went along with it because, hey, it's his first Hollywood film. Maybe he would have had more clout if it was later in his career, but whatever. That was what became, the version that we all knew. And then, of course, the real intentions kind of come out later.
Yeah.
And you watch the ending where the doors just close at the end, and that's Philip K. Dick. That's Philip K. Dick. That's how he would have written it if he was involved. That's the dystopian type of ending that Philip K. Dick would have put together. And it's just, and the sci-fi fans got what they wanted in the end, I think. But there's decades went by
Yeah.
where it's being messed with, and
Yeah, there's like so many different cuts, like so many through the years, so many different cuts.
But I think that was one of the first films I ever knew of that had a director's cut.
Mm,
I think again Ridley was pretty much instrumental in bringing that to the mainstream. Now everyone seems to do it. You know, there's
yeah,
director's cuts of everything. Um,
yeah.
so
It has
yeah,
become the encore. The movie equivalent to the encore that it's coming. It's just like,
yeah.
I mean, what's the point, guys? Let's just do
Let's
it
just
for
wait
the
until we
encore.
see.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that's. I mean, as soon as it became something that was semi-popular, then the studios are probably thinking, "Great, we make twice the money because we get a second flush of this."
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I said, yeah, and I suppose being a British filmmaker, you kind of see this happening large in America a lot of the time. Um, but I am a UK filmmaker, and I want to try and make UK films, even if it's genre, because
Mm.
we're not massively well known for it. And once we do get reasonably good at it, we often cross the pond and do it there. But all three of my stories are very, very much about being in the UK. So we shall see how that pans out.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I can guarantee that the Sci-Fi London audience are going to be gripped with
Oh,
this one.
thank
Yeah.
you. That's really nice to hear. Thank you.
No, no. I mean, yeah, like, is this the first one you've had that it's not your first Sci-Fi London film, is it?
It is
Okay.
because I've made a couple of sci-fis back in the early 2000s, and I don't know how long Sci-Fi London's been going, um, but yeah, I mean both of those films did pretty good on the festival circuit, but I can't remember Sci-Fi London being in the mix back then. 2006, 2007.
I don't yeah, I think it's been like 10 years, maybe something. I
Right,
think, I believe. I might be wrong.
right,
Ah,
okay.
Louis, don't kill me. Um, put me on the spot,
It's been
Richard.
gone 25 years, Kevin.
God damn you, man. No, but this definitely feels like something. Like from all the festivals that I've been to, like it feels like something that will definitely play well
Oh,
to
that's
the
nice. Good,
audience.
good, good, good. I hope so. I mean, I'm going to go on the 14th. I think it feels like such a great day that it's all kind of concentrated on the 14th.
Yeah.
So um, so I'll see every block on that day. Um, and there's films that have followed me around on the circuit. So they've been on, and I haven't seen some of them. So I'm really excited to get a chance to go to Sci-Fi London and see everything at once. That'd be good.
Yeah, I've watched a few so far, had a few conversations,
Hmm.
and everything I've seen so far has been really interesting. So I've
Yeah.
looked forward to seeing. I've watched Dandelion, Memoria.
Hmm.
Um, oh gosh, I
It's
feel
the
this. I know I haven't watched it yet, but I'm due to watch Universe 25. Um,
Yeah,
oh,
I've been paired with Dandelion a few times, and I haven't
right,
seen it
right.
yet. So that's exciting. As I think there's one called Sileo or Sileo, Sileo, by a Polish guy,
Oh,
Benita.
yeah, 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 yeah.
So he's been in some of the same programs as me, and I'm excited to see his film.
Uh, yeah, I'm gonna be speaking to Muri about a positive contribution
Yeah, I've heard of
soon.
that one. Yep,
Um,
I might have even seen that one.
yeah, I made War of the Worlds. I'm doing that one. Um, Yeah, you know, there's a good few of them which we should be having conversations about, which
Good.
is
Sounds
always
exciting.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some of my other festivals have been things like Philip K. Dick Festival in New York. That was pretty
Ah,
cool.
oh, nice.
And I'm in Sydney this month as well, which is
Ooh.
exciting. I'm not in Sydney,
Ah.
unfortunately, but my film is. And yeah, so and there's a few other festivals that I'm trying to see if I'm going to get into. I think there's Boston and Miami still to come for
Oh,
me.
yeah,
So
yeah.
hope,
It's a
so
good one.
fingers crossed for them. And then my festival run will be finished, and then I can see if I can get it out to some broadcasters.
Hmm.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, what's next? What's the plan going forward?
Well, this is the problem. So basically, Soulmate was written out of a feature that I'd written called Lifelike.
Right.
And in theory, once you've watched Soulmate and you've read Lifelike, you could see that Lifelike should go next. But it's probably the most expensive out of my three features that I have. So there's maybe opportunities to pursue it first. But if that's not going to happen, then I've got another sci-fi that's much more kind of in the lower budget range that is actually out and being touted around right now, which is exciting. And then there's a Plan C, I guess, which is my smallest film, sort of a psychological thriller that doesn't have any sci-fi trimmings at all. So it's something that can be approached a lot more, smaller budget.
Oh.
So and I feel like I might just push that one, just constantly, just see how far I can get with that.
Mm.
And if something else starts to materialize with the other two, then I can move my efforts towards them. So as long as I don't get stuck, that's the biggest problem. I don't want that gap that you were mentioning before to happen
Yeah.
anywhere near again that long. That's not good. That's not going to work. It's not
No.
going to work for me this time.
Well,
So
especially after whetting everyone's appetite with Soulmate, like
thank you.
it'll be unacceptable for another
That,
10-year gap.
that's what I think.
Yeah, if you even try and pull it, I'm gonna dox you, and people are gonna be knocking that door in. We want the next film. Wick.
I think there's certainly something in Soulmate where at least, I don't know, maybe a dozen people have said to me, that's the film that I want to see more of, and that's what you want to hear, because there is a story that's bigger
Mm,
than that. Lifelike is the same world, not quite the same characters, but the same sort of themes. And it, obviously you can get more profound with a feature, and have a bigger sort of theme. And
yeah,
it's mostly to do with what we're going to do when AI gets to a conscious level, because we really are going to have to think about machine rights and
mm,
all sorts of things that are just like, we've just invented an entity.
yeah,
Wow. Do you know what I mean? It's like we don't even know how to respectfully look after animals on this planet, domesticated or wild. We just have no idea what to do. So
yeah,
what would happen if we've got, a conscious version of, in our image, us, that is probably going to outstrip our intelligence very quickly, and what are we going to do about it all? So that's where the feature is heading.
mm,
Soulmate is almost a little subset of that bigger idea.
okay,
So
okay. Well, that's interesting because yeah, when you think about what people do in relationships, right? How
mhm,
people can date someone and then just disappear.
mhm.
Right? You can break up with someone and not give them a reason or just never contact them again. Right? So you
Yeah,
just think of the off-key things people can do.
exactly,
What then
exactly.
happens when that happens to Neil?
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
what rights does Neil have? Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, or being an AI construct, can Neil then track you down easier? Like, what
Yeah.
can happen? Like, what's yeah,
Mm.
it definitely. Oh, there's some fertile ground there for sure.
There is absolutely, and there's also this whole notion of, you know, the AIs as they progress towards consciousness want more answers. Like, well, what am I doing here? Why am I
Mm,
here? Which is exactly what we ask about being on this planet, and
yeah.
so there becomes a sort of a real psychology involved in that. You know, imagine what would happen if he found out that he wasn't actually real. That
Mm.
sort of area I really like.
Ooh.
So, and you know, not giving too much away because it's not even. I mean, it's a decent draft, but it's not that polished final draft that you want to
Right.
make tomorrow. It was the last of the three that I've written, so it feels like it's catching up a little bit, but um, but yeah, those are the sorts of themes that are in it, and um, we'll see what happens. I just need to get it seen by a lot of people, and then, you know, some of those people are the right people for finance, and we'll see what
Mm.
happens after that. To be honest.
Oh, well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what's next. Definitely
Thank
looking
you.
forward to seeing what's next, man. But yeah, Soulmates was tremendous, and I'm sure that's going to be the springboard.
Thank you. I hope so too.
No worries at all, man. So, people, Soulmates will be screening online with Sci-Fi London from the 14th to the 20th of September. Hold on, it might be the 22nd to the 22nd of September. So make sure you go check it out. The links will be on the website. Richard, how can people keep track of everything you are doing?
So I've got my own website, which is just richardfenwick.com. So Fenwick is spelled Fenwick. So that's my main hub for everything. I've also got Instagram, which is just Richard Fenwick _director. So that's a good place to find out about festivals, including Sci-Fi London, etc. That's about the two main places I would say. Yeah.
Okay, well, the links will be on the website, so make sure you go check those out. Go follow Richard, and yeah, like let's help drive that next film into production because
That'd be
I want to
awesome.
watch
Thank you.
it.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate everything you've said today. Thank you.
Hey, no worries, man. I'm just saying what I saw, and it was a just an outstanding film. Everyone involved was exceptional. So, hey, well
Thank
done to
you.
you and your team, man, because you absolutely, man,
So
I
good to
was
hear.
just hooked,
That's
hooked on
great.
this one.
That's great. It makes me want to make the next film, though. Come
Awesome.
on.
Let's do it. Let's go. All right, man. Well, all the best. And yeah, when you're ready to talk about the next one, man, please come by and let's have another conversation.
Absolutely. Totally. Thank you.
Tremendous. All right, man.
Thank
Take
you.
it easy.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.